Hey everyone, Eric here. Thanks for tuning in. I was one of many people who believed that although Biden had some pretty progressive tax propositions at his disposal, it was unlikely that they would ever make it through a Senate with a Republican majority. In other words, Republicans in the Senate were going to block off most of these proposals. To my surprise, Democratic Senate candidates Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock beat Republican incumbents David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler in Tuesday's Georgia runoff elections. Now that the Democrats control both the House and the Senate, it is much more likely for Biden to successfully pass his new tax plans. Today, I'm going to be going over that plan that Biden has proposed and how it will inevitably affect your wallets. But please make sure to consult with your CPA prior to making any financial decisions, as I am truly just a random guy on the internet. Please leave a like on this video if I provide you any value so that YouTube will show it to people outside of my subscriber base. Having said that, let's get started. There are a few ways that Biden's tax plan could impact you financially. The first is through federal income taxes. Biden has claimed that if you are making less than $400,000, then you would not experience any changes to your taxes whatsoever. What is unclear is that Biden has also stated that he was going to repeal Donald Trump's tax cuts, which also lowered taxes for average Americans. For example, if you made $50,000 last year under Trump's tax plan, the highest you'd be taxed is 22%, while under Biden's plan, you'd pay 25%. I'm sure that this will be cleared up once Biden is in office.
Nobody making under $400,000 would have their taxes raised, period. Bingo.
If you make over that $400,000 threshold, then you should expect to see an increase in the percentage that you will be paying in taxes from 37% to 39.6%. Please note that this doesn't mean that you're going to be taxed this percentage on your entire income, only at the highest tax bracket. High-income earners have been able to hire lobbyists to create exceptions and change the tax code specifically for them for generations. One of the most famous examples of this happened in the 1950s, where the highest tax rate was an astronomical 91% for earners that made over $200,000, which is roughly $2.9 million in today's dollars. Louis B. Mayer, a world-famous film producer, hired a lobbyist who was able to persuade a congressman to write in a pet statute into the law that exempted his income from taxation. So instead of having to pay 91% in taxes on his $2.7 million retirement bonus, he only had to pay 25%. So a valid argument against high taxes is that it would create even more inequality between the ultra-rich and the above-average American workers that cannot afford to pay a lobbyist to change the tax code in their favor. Also, if you are self-employed, a simple workaround to avoid the highest tax bracket is by paying yourself a $399,000 salary, and for every dollar you make over $400,000, you pay yourself in distributions. In other words, there are many ways of avoiding taxes legally. The next thing that's going to change under a Biden presidency is Social Security taxes. Currently, if you make less than $137,000, then you and your employer would pay 12.4% of your income, evenly split towards Social Security. So 6.2% would be paid by you, and the other 6.2% would be paid by your employer. For every dollar that you make over $137,000, you do not have to pay any additional Social Security taxes. Under Biden's new plan, however, if you make over $400,000, then you'll have to pay an additional 12.4% of your income split between you and your employer. As you are probably aware, Social Security is dying since people are living much longer than in 1935 when the program was first created. Because of this, more money is being taken out of the pool by retired folks versus being put in by anyone younger than the age of 62. Biden's new tax plan is expected to help bolster this fund. Thus, when it comes to income tax and Social Security tax, the wealthy are going to be disproportionately affected by Biden's plan. It is still unclear what is going to happen to Americans who make less than $400,000, but we will see if Biden keeps his word.
But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes.
Now, the next change to the tax plan under Biden is how long-term capital gains are going to be taxed. You need to hold on to your investment for at least 1 year for it to be considered long-term. The government wants to incentivize people to invest in their futures, so they have created favorable tax rates for the people that do. At this time, capital gains are taxed differently than ordinary income, but Biden wants to change that. Let's say that you make $30,000 per year in your full-time job. Furthermore, you profited $10,000 from a trade that you made in the stock market that you held for more than 12 months, making it long-term gains. You wouldn't have to pay any taxes on that trade since your annual income was less than $40,000. Now, if you make between $40,000 and $441,000, then you'd have to pay 15% in taxes on any long-term capital gains. Now, for those of you making over $441,000 annually, you are in the top tax bracket and will have to pay 20% on those gains. Some sources have suggested that Biden wants to change the tax code to force capital gains taxes to be treated like ordinary income. In other words, depending on how much money you make annually and in what tax bracket you fall into, that's what you'd be paying in taxes on your capital gains. However, I think the more likely option that I have heard is changes only for those making over $1 million annually. If you are making more than $1 million per year, then Biden wants to tax your capital gains at an income tax rate of 39.6%. This is nearly double the original 20% that is normally paid by high-income earners. Thus, it is no surprise why many of these individuals are not fans of Biden's economic policies. Now, the next place that Biden wants to increase taxes is on corporations. Today, the corporate tax rate is 21%, but under Biden, these businesses will likely have to pay closer to 28%. The government has to be very careful about how it taxes its businesses. Corporations are created for one purpose and one purpose only: to make profits. When Biden raises corporate taxes, that'll cut into the company's profits, which may lead to an increase in prices for consumers or a decrease in pay for workers. While this increase in corporate tax would create about $1 trillion for the government, it is important to look at the potential side effects of doing so. Lastly, Biden has proposed a $15,000 first-time homebuyer tax credit. While on the surface, this proposal was created to help first-time homebuyers in the minority community, it could potentially make things worse for them. Now, real estate prices have been ridiculously high, as I am sure you are all aware, especially in the Bay Area. The problem is that there is a shortage of houses being sold because of all the uncertainty that the virus has caused, as well as the presidential change. Because of this, it is still a possibility that this tax credit drives housing prices even higher, defeating the purpose altogether. Still, this is a kind gesture by Biden to try and help young people get their foot in the door and buy their first house. According to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Biden's tax plan would raise roughly $3.6 trillion over the next 10 years if everything goes according to plan. Now, I would argue that Biden's tax plans are likely to be passed through the House and then through the Senate without too much of a struggle, considering that both of them have a Democratic majority. Understand that regardless of if you are a high-income earner or not, though, you will be affected by these tax changes. The wealthy may be worse off with Biden in office, but these legislative changes may cause prices to increase, force companies to lay off employees or pay them less, and motivate the rich to pay lobbyists to create tax loopholes like they have done over a century, or just move their funds overseas and hide them. But what do you think? Should the wealthy have to pay more in taxes, and is this the way to do it? Feel free to comment below. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and leave a like on this video so that my video will be shown to other people outside of my subscriber base. Would really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye now.